Değerli konuklar, Türkiye
Distinguished participants, the President of Republic of Turkey has honored our Congress with their participants. We would like to welcome you. We are proud to have you here.
His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdoğan honored our Congress. Welcome, His Excellency. Değerli konuklar, Türkiye Cumhurbaşkanı
Distinguished participants, the President of the Republic of Turkey has honored the Conference of Constitutional Jurisdiction of the Islamic World, and I would like to welcome you all for the opening Congress. Esteemed President, distinguished participants, now I would like to invite you for a 1-minute silence in the memory to commemorate our martyrs, and especially Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Now I would like to invite you for 1-minute silence, which will be followed by our national anthem.
teşekkür ediyoruz.
Thank you very much. Distinguished President, distinguished participants, now we are here at the Conference of Constitutional Jurisdiction of the Islamic World, and we would like to have a prolific and constructive jurisdiction forum, and we have observatory countries, and this the first meeting, and it was hosted in 14th and 15th December, and In Indonesia, Bandung, we had another conference, and we had taken another step with the Bandung Declaration, and we accepted the Istanbul Declaration, and this process started with the Istanbul Declaration, and this conference was established, and this first opening conference was planned to be held in Istanbul in 2022, and we made a decision about finalizing its establishment process, and all the activities about this were completed, and the draft statute was prepared. But now I would like to invite the president of the Constitutional Court of Republic of Turkey, Zühtü Arslan, Professor Dr. Zühtü Arslan. The floor is yours for your opening speech, sir. Mr. President, dear guests, first of all, I welcome you and greet you with my most sincere feelings and respects. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of Allah be upon you. Today, we are here in this historical place to complete the establishment process that started with the conference we opened in this hall 4 years ago, with the participation of our president in this historical hall. We held our first meeting, and in the opening of this meeting, we wish that the conference will turn into a permanent platform. And now I can see that this wish has come true, and this is the first meeting, first opening congress of this conference, and we are really happy to be hosting this first meeting. And taking this opportunity, I would like to welcome you again, and we are really honored to have you here with us. Mr. President, as you know, as it is known, the main function of the constitutional judiciary is the protection of fundamental rights and freedoms by ensuring the supremacy of the Constitution. For the fulfillment of this function, it depends on the realization of constitutional principles and values such as justice, equality, freedom, rule of law, and separation of powers, which are included in the constitutions that are in the nature of a social contract. Undoubtedly, the naming of constitutional principles and values change according to time and place, and it might have different implementations. However, it is also known that the values that provide social and political unity have roots in different cultures and civilizations. For example, justice has been accepted as one of the basic values in all societies throughout history. We all know this. Because of the existence and continuation of social life is only possible with justice. The existence of the state cannot continue without justice, and the instrument of realization of justice is law. For this reason, all religions that present a set of values for the ideal society have put law and justice at its center. As a matter of fact, in the Quran, the realization of justice is expressed as one of the reasons for the very existence of religion. And it is stated that the book and the scale were sent down with the prophets for people to fulfill justice. It is known that the word mizan here also means scales. Thanks to the scales, which are used as a symbol of justice in almost every society, the law of people is protected and their rights are given in full. For this reason, the responsibility of those who hold the scales of justice is to act fairly, to measure correctly, and to make fair decisions by keeping it in their hands right. Thus, the prominent role played by the judiciary and the judge in the establishment of justice among people becomes clearer. Other sources of Islam emphasize justice and other universal values stemming from justice, primarily equality, fundamental rights, and freedoms. Among the messages that begin with people are the indispensable principles of maintaining a healthy social life, such as the prohibition of discrimination, the protection of life, property, and generation, the individuality of crimes and punishments, and freedom of religion and conscience. So, therefore, these principles and values that fall under the scope of constitutional jurisdiction are familiar to us. They are our core values. Mr. President, the realization of values such as justice, freedom, the equality of our civilization, which has a rich acquis in thought and discourse, will cure the problems experienced not only in the Muslim geography, but also in the whole world. We all know of the difficulties we experience, women and children who are exposed to violence and abuse. There are refugees who are considered as a number that should be reduced. And there are those who try to hold on to life below the hunger threshold. And there are those who are punished for their beliefs or thoughts, and those who are excluded and marginalized because they're not like us. These human landscapes from our world are concrete manifestations of the justice deficit we face at the national and international level. At this point, perhaps the biggest problem is that a healthy relationship with the other has not been established. And we don't realize that the other also has rights, like also is entitled to rights, just like we are. One of the most important people who talked about the reflection of this scene in the Islamic world was late Aliya Izzet Begovic. Aliya attended a meeting 25 years ago. Aliya summed up the situation we were in very succinctly with the words, "Islam is the best, this is the truth, but we are not the best," at a meeting attended by representatives of Islamic countries. Aliya was not just satisfied with this definition or declaration. He also showed the theoretical and practical solutions. According to him, the goal required by Islamic sensitivity is to create a society with moral discipline and political freedom and a law-abiding state. In order for a rule of law, protecting fundamental rights and freedoms, the judicial institutions, especially the Supreme Courts that control the constitutionality, have great responsibilities. It should be noted that the idea of protecting fundamental rights and freedoms by the judiciary also reflects an understanding envisaged by Islam. Centuries ago, Ibn Khaldun emphasized that people's rights and laws should be protected for the continuation of the state. And violation of people's rights is expressed as persecution in Mukaddime. According to Ibn Khaldun, persecution, that is, violations of rights, leads to the destruction of civilization and therefore ultimately to the damage of the state. For this reason, the function of the state and especially the judiciary should be to protect people's rights and laws. In this sense, the main duty of the judge is to secure the rights of the people, and in Ibn Khaldun's own words, it is to protect the law of the people. Mr. President, as it is known, especially with the acceptance of individual application, the scope of constitutional jurisdiction has expanded. And today, constitutional courts have become indispensable institutions for the protection of constitutional rights and freedoms by examining the constitutionality of the norms on the one hand and examining claims of individual rights violations on the other. In this context, the cooperation and experience sharing of the constitutional courts, which have undertaken similar responsibilities and duties, and the higher judicial bodies that carry out constitutional review have become very important. I believe that the Islamic World Constitutional Judiciary Conference and its first Congress offers a unique opportunity in this respect. As stated in the draft statute, I hope that the conference will make a significant contribution to the better protection of the rule of law and the fundamental rights and freedoms of everyone living in our countries by laying groundwork for mutual exchange of knowledge and experiences. And with these feelings and thoughts, I wish the Congress to be successful and thank everyone who contributed, especially the working committee that prepared the draft statute of the conference and all the participants. I wish you all healthy and peaceful days. We would like to thank the President of the Republic of Turkey Constitutional Court, Professor Dr. Zühtü Arslan. Thank you. Distinguished participants, I would like to invite the President of the Republic of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, who honored the Conference of Constitutional Jurisdiction of the Islamic World. The floor is yours, sir.
Buyurun. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Presidents of the Supreme Courts of Member States of OIC, distinguished guests, my dear brothers and sisters, I greet you all with most heartfelt feelings and respect. Esselamu Aleyküm ve Rahmetullahi ve Berekatuhu. Welcome to Turkey and to Istanbul, the precious city of the world, and a city also praised by our Prophet. It is a pleasure to welcome you to our beautiful Istanbul on the occasion of the Conference of Constitutional Jurisdiction of the Islamic World. OIC's first conference on constitutional courts and Supreme Courts was hosted 4 years ago, again by our country. And it was also at that conference that the Istanbul Declaration was adopted. The Istanbul Declaration aims to strengthen cooperation and experience sharing among our high judicial authorities. With the second conference, which was held in Indonesia last year, the Conference of Constitutional Jurisdiction of Islamic World became an official and independent platform. Now, this conference here in Istanbul is now a continuation of this series, and I'm confident that it will carry the Istanbul and Bandung declarations much further. I'm convinced that this two-day conference will provide an opportunity for useful and fruitful deliberations on topics such as the rule of law, democracy, and respect for human rights. Likewise, the conference will also provide an opportunity for the exchange of experience and exchange of knowledge among our higher judicial authorities when it comes to jurisprudence and handling of constitutional cases. And I would like to already express my sincere gratitude to the representatives of the high courts and legal experts who are present, who will contribute to the conference with their valuable ideas, proposals, and deliberations. I would also like to thank the President of our Constitutional Court and his team for the efforts in organizing this conference, and I pray to God for our meeting to be beneficial and auspicious for the Islamic world and for all humanity. Distinguished guests, our state tradition is based on the motto of "Let people live so that the state can live." According to this, the fundamental raison d'être of the state and of all its institutions is to serve the human being, who is the most noble of creations. The primary duty of the state is to provide first-class services to its citizens. its citizens having all equal rights. And its primary duty is also to provide these services in all fields from security to basic needs. And the criterion that determines the quality of these services provided by the state to the citizens is the knowledge, skills, vision, and resilience of those who govern the state. The ability of the mechanism we call the state to fulfill the purpose of its existence depends on the sound functioning of all its organs through visionary administrators. For sure, the state also has a balance of powers within itself. The healthier this balance is established and operated, the better, more efficient and effective the state mechanism and its constituent institutions will work. But if there is any tension, conflict, or destructive competition among the powers that form the backbone of the democratic system, the society gets to suffer the adverse consequences. The balance between the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary is as important as the harmony within each of these institutions themselves. And disharmony in the functioning of the legislative affects both the executive and the judiciary. Or a crisis in the executive branch, for example, would block the system as a whole. Or failures in the functioning of the judiciary lead to problems in the entire system. Turkey, in fact, is a country that has suffered the pain of such crises in its recent history and has paid the price in different areas from economy to democracy. In our country, we have had to spend time and energy wasted in overcoming the problems we have faced, sometimes in the form of tutelage, sometimes in the form of coup d'etat. And as a result, this has left us far from our democratic and economic goals. For sure, the judiciary has a special importance in this picture. And moreover, Turkey has experienced some really bad examples in this regard, which we do not want to remember. But in fact, the provision of justice services, judicial services, in providing these, there should never be any room for ideological fanaticism or bureaucratic oligarchy. Because justice is not only the foundation of the establishment, but it also is the keystone that holds the state architecture together. The state rises, develops, strengthens, and grows only on justice. A state that cannot dispense justice, that cannot rule its citizens with justice, is doomed to collapse, just like a building with a decayed, rotten foundation. The slightest negligence or violation of the principle of rule of law will undermine confidence in the legislative and in the executive, and also in the judiciary. And this will cause irreparable harm to the functioning of the state. In light of our past experiences, Turkey has taken many steps in the last 2 decades, particularly to improve the quality of our judicial services. We eliminated the difference between civilian and military judiciary, and we combined these two. So this ensured and established a unity in our judicial system. And we launched the UYAP project, which is the National Judicial Network project. And thanks to it, our judiciary can now make use of technology. We also introduced the conciliation and mediation systems. These are alternative dispute resolution methodologies, and they introduce convenience to the parties. We conducted many reforms, such as individual application to the Constitutional Court, the right to good reputation, the Ombudsman's Office, the Human Rights Institution of Turkey, and the Personal Data Protection Agency. We have constitutionally guaranteed impartiality and also independence of our judiciary. So we have eliminated another important deficiency of our legal system. In addition to all of these, we have also fully established the principle of separation of powers in our country for the first time in our history, because we switched to the presidential government system. with the consent of our people, of course. In the coming year, in the light of the first term implementation of our new governance system, we also want to bring newer reforms to our country that will strengthen the legislative and the judiciary, and will also make the executive more effective, we hope. Of course, in this process, there may be some debates in the society over certain incidents in different segments of the society. But we believe that each of these debates or discussions are settled and concluded with the principle of the rule of law, following perhaps sometimes initial feverish discussions. Dear friends, what is done for justice and for human rights is actually never enough. We live in a climate where life is constantly changing, and change produces new problems. So it is unthinkable for the legal system to remain outside of this. For the state to fulfill the purpose of its existence, it must constantly renew itself, and it must eliminate its deficiencies if there are any. This is our perspective as politicians who have the responsibility of governing the country. And in light of this, we constantly improve our legislation accordingly. We prioritize human beings in every field concerning rights and freedoms, especially regarding the balance between freedom and security. In this process, we listen to every criticism and every idea that paves the way for us, that gives us new horizons, and that raises the standard of services we give. We have never been and will never be insecure about anything if we believe something is really for the good of our nation. The most important hallmark of our 2 decades in power is that we have never lost our will for rights and freedom-oriented reforms. Our reformist spirit has guided us during all these years, and we are determined to keep this spirit alive and to strengthen it even further. I know for a fact that our sisters and brothers who are members of the OIC are also making a genuine effort when it comes to law, justice, democracy, and freedoms. I personally witnessed the reforms being implemented in many countries that I visit. In fact, in many areas, we see that friendly and brotherly countries in the Islamic world are in a much better position than Western states. But Orientalist approaches towards the Islamic world and towards Muslims often obscure these sincere efforts and critical steps that these countries take voluntarily. The Islamic world is subjected to unfair, baseless, and outrageous criticism, especially in the field of law and justice. Orientalism is in fact a disease of the colonial period. It doesn't exist in academia only, but also in the international political and legal community. Still, those who cannot confront their own colonial past, whenever they open their mouths, they turn to us and try to teach us human rights and the rule of law. In many countries, they see no harm in supporting bloody terrorist organizations, and they turn to us and they lecture us on the sanctity of human life. Those who leave no stone unturned when it comes to their own security, they criticize our legal system and judicial system, but turning the whole issue of law and human rights into a tool for interstate competition is wrong. But at the same time, it's also dangerous. Applying double standards on matters directly affecting human beings and human dignity is harmful for the fight for human rights. It is the vulnerable, whose fundamental rights and freedoms are brutally usurped, who bear the brunt of the gap between the rhetoric and actions of international organizations and some Western states. The most painful example of this before us is the Syrian crisis, which is about to complete its 12th year. Unfortunately, humanity has not performed well in the face of this crisis. It has so far claimed more than 1 million Syrians. Except for a handful of countries and organizations, including Turkey, of course, no one cared about the cries of the Syrians who are oppressed. Neither the tragedy of the baby Aylan, whose innocent body washed up on the beach, nor the pain of children dying under bombs was enough to mobilize their consciousness. Western countries and Western institutions reacted to the human tragedy in Syria only when refugees arrived at their own doorsteps. So, instead of finding a solution to the root cause of this problem, this reaction, as a result, has manifested itself in the form of locking migrants behind barbed wires. What we observe is, with amazement in fact, is that those who ignore the oppressed and the vulnerable outside their borders exhibit the most primitive reflexes of fascism when it comes to their own security and their own prosperity. Dear friends, the negative impact of the waves of hatred, which are the product of a defective view of Muslims, continues today, right next doors. The attitude of our Western neighbor, Greece, their attitude towards migrants has now reached the level of brutality. They torture and strip migrants who come off refugee boats in the middle of the sea and then push them back. And this introduces a new atrocity every day. Additionally, Western countries do not show any significant reaction to Greece's brutality and cruelty. They just make a few statements in the form of a prohibition, and apart from that, we have not come across any effort at all to prevent this cruelty, to protect the rights of those refugees, including children and women, mind you. We are all saddened, deeply saddened, by the shameful images of border lines and refugee shelters. These resemble Nazi camps, unfortunately. We witness a similar attitude also in the fight against terrorism. Those institutions that are welcoming Syrian, Iraqi, and African refugees are being tolerant as possible, in fact, when it comes to PKK and FETÖ terrorists. The coup plotters, they killed 252 of our citizens on the night of the attempted coup on the 15th of July. And these coup plotters, can now walk freely in many European countries today. The separatist terrorist organization finances its attacks on Syria, Iraq, and Turkey with the millions of euros that it collects in these countries every year. We will know that there are countries that include a direct aid section in their own budget for these terrorist organizations. By hiding behind the concept of political asylum seeker, which has no clear definition, by the way, terrorists are protected, and those involved in the coup crimes are evaded from justice. Now, despite all our requests, Western countries have not taken any legal step at all against many coup plotters who are fugitives in their countries. we sent them over folders full of documents. And with these documents, it's obvious, everything is obvious, but still no one has knocked on the door of the FETÖ ringleader's mansion in the US. Those who criticized the legal steps Turkey took in the aftermath of the coup attempt, where 252 of our people were killed, are now taking drastic measures in the face of coup rumors. Until yesterday, they accused us of pushing the limits of the law in the fight against the coup. Now they have almost reached this stage of shelving the law when it comes to their own democracy. Of course, we are aware of the mindset, the mentality behind this ambivalent attitude towards terrorism and coup crimes. These target our country, and we are determined to carry out our fight against terrorism within the limits of law and on the basis of legitimacy, regardless of who says what. And we will continue our efforts until Turkey ranks first in the world, not only in security but also in freedom and justice terms. But those who only safeguard their own welfare and interests instead of human dignity do not stand a chance to maintain their distorted systems forever. Sooner or later, this unjust system will crumble, and inshallah, God willing, it will be replaced by an inclusive system. And it will serve the welfare of entire humanity. Our duty, meanwhile, is to continue to work shoulder to shoulder with one heart for humanity, for our sisters and brothers, for the peace and well-being of our people. As the Islamic world, I believe that our tomorrow will be much brighter than today. I hope that our conference will turn into a platform where all these matters are discussed, debated, and where solutions are provided. As I conclude my remarks with these thoughts, once again, I would like to congratulate everyone who contributed to the organizing of this event. And I would like to once again welcome you, our guests from abroad, particularly, and I would like to greet all the participants with most heartfelt feelings. God bless you all.
Kitaplarından dolayı teşekkür ederim.
We would like to thank Mr. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan for his inaugural speech. And now I'd like to invite the Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court, and we would like to thank all the delegation, heads of delegations, and we would like to invite them for the family photo. Thank you very much.
Adalet Bakanımız
Our Minister of Justice, we would like to invite them to the floor. Thank you.
Türkiye Cumhurbaşkanı Sayın Recep Tayyip
We would like to thank for honoring our Congress the President of the Republic of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and while our President is leaving the hall, please be seated. Thank you very much.
Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımıza bir kez daha teşekkür ediyoruz.
We would like to thank to our President once more. As the President is leaving the hall, please be seated.
Seated please. When the Republic of Turkey, His Excellency, leaving the hall. Thank you. Kongremiz öğleden sonra oturumlarla sürecek. Günün ilk oturumu temel